evening, everybody, and welcome. Great lunch. I'm sure everybody enjoyed it. And thank you to the staff for that. It's my pleasure to present today on our revaluation for tax year 2024 and a few other little items. So as everybody would know, we're now into a yearly base date within Newfoundland, with the exception of the city of St. John's, who does a 2-year base date. So it's great timing now. This symposium is just on the cusp of us completing our reevaluation and a good time, good opportunity update to where we're going and what we're doing. So with that, I'll continue. Brief overview of the agenda, what we're going to discuss. So let's look at the overview for this year's tax year. Again, the base date is January 1 of 2023. What that means is that we look at the market and determine assessments as of January, all the sales, all the market data up to January 1 of 2023. And based on that, we determine what market values are going to do and different aspects like that. Our notices will be mailed out on June the 1st. We're in the process right now of uploading the data into our database for printing, preparing rolls that we will have out to the towns, hopefully within the next 2 to 3 weeks at the latest. So you can be expecting them at that time. And it's important to note today to mail out, because as anybody here that works in the municipal sector or within the council office, that's when the phone calls will start. So be aware of that. I've kind of ingrained that into our policy going forward. June 1st will always be the mail out date, with the exception of when it falls on a weekend. And I think in a couple of years' time, it's on a Saturday and Sunday. I will kind of switch it in so it goes out on a Monday. But that is going to be the day and from now on going forward, June 1st, with a deadline of July 31st. Before I get too much into the numbers, I did want to make a quick comment, because I'm going to show a lot of percentages here. We are all municipal leaders, municipal town clerks, or staff. The numbers are percentages. They do not, we as an agency do not work with percentages. We don't look at markets and say we're increasing by 5% or 6% or anything like that. We look at the market. We look at what properties are selling for, what neighborhoods they're at. So you can have multiple different changes in a municipality depending on where you're to and different things like that. I do present it here in percentages, because ultimately from the municipal level, right, and from the budgetary level and different aspects like that, what you guys are actually concerned is the bottom line. How much is my total tax going to increase or decrease for budget for when I start to do my budget? You do your budgets in October. So these represent those totals. So I'd be very cautious about speaking to anybody in the public, any of your constituents or anything like that, and tell them your property should go up by 5% or 6%. And be very cautious if somebody ever comes up and says, well, mine didn't go up the same, it went up way more than somebody else's. It's not as simple as that. You do get any of those types of conversations, I suggest that you contact or ask them to contact our office, and we can certainly run through how we determine our valuation, because we never deal in percentages. The only time I ever talk about percentages is when I'm here. Other than that, it's all about where you're to, what properties are selling for. I mean, anybody that's any knowledge at all would know that a property facing the water is probably going to sell for more than one that's not facing the water. And you may see a major increase in those type properties, and you may see none in the rest of the community. So I would always say be very cautious of that. These are the overall receipts, a snapshot of the province. I'm glad to see that in the past 2 years, things weren't good. Even prior to the pandemic, we saw unprecedented drop in market values, which is something we hadn't seen at that point for 25 years. We are starting to rebound. These numbers are very encouraging, and they would have been a little bit higher had we done this mid-year, because of the changes in the interest rates and different things like that, which were meant to slow the markets and different aspects like that. We did see some of the market drop a little bit at the end of the last 3 to 4 months. So again, you'll hear in the press and you'll hear an analysis saying that markets are booming and different things like that. And that was the reality in some sectors, but most sectors, even in Ontario and as far as Vancouver, slowed drastically as a result of the change in interest rates. Commercial valuations. The first one I'm going to point out, this is a slide that I presented on over the past couple of years. When the pandemic hit, some industries, such as the ones noted here, were drastically hit, or probably the hardest hit as a result of the pandemic. Airports, accommodations, restaurants, and retails. Naturally, given the fact that people, couldn't get out, couldn't travel, couldn't shop, couldn't do anything. So this was the results, and this is what we did for 2 years based on our consultation with the industry, with other provinces, and what was actually going on in the market. We have seen a rebound. Things are coming back. And as a result, this year, we're seeing an increase from last 2 years. Again, accommodations are up 9%, airports are 21%. So that's good. It's not back to where we were to. I didn't expect it to be back where we're to yet. Even though you'll hear about hotels, and it may be hard to get a hotel in Newfoundland, and a lot of people did stay at home, which is true. But a lot of those accommodations cut their rates and different things like that to accommodate people. And slowly that'll climb back up, and we will see a little bit of increase. It was interesting though at the airports, because we looked at this and analyzed it left, right, and center. But I heard the airport, the head of the air, Tommy Williams of the Airport Corporation, I think it was yesterday, saying that the City of St. John's Airport region they backed about 75% of their business. So that kind of validated a little bit that we're not fully there, but we certainly are getting there. And it's always good news. And hopefully this time next year, everything will be back in a little bit higher. I hope so, anyhow. So these are the average residential results, again, in comparison to last year, up slightly. And again, average within the province. Don't relate this to any particular town, but it is always good to see that overall going up. We broke that out then into the average regional values based on the districts that our board makes up. So these are all the represent all our areas that our board members represent. Again, great numbers. Everybody's seeing a little bit increased. I will again have I wouldn't say take these with a grain of salt, but really consider what you're reading here based on where you're from. So I always go back to, for example, Labrador. That $11,664 average value. Well, you always have to remember that that includes Lab City, Wabush, areas that have high values and historically have values that shift up and down. But when they shift up, they're usually high. And then also within that pool is municipalities such as St. Louis or Cartwright or Mary's Harbor, where the values may be lower. So again, it doesn't necessarily mean that every town in Labrador is that's their average value or average change. And the same way with Western. I mean, if you take the Corner Brook out of it, and Stephenville and Deer Lake and Pasadena, that number will be considerably lower for the remaining towns. So any of these towns that are not in those municipalities, you would consider your evaluations to be lower. If you're in Corner Brook, it's going to be higher. I always like to show this to see as a comparison based on those numbers previously seen. Based on the increase, if your mill rate is 7, this is basically what it means in tax dollars for each resident. That has an increase. For example, I think in Labrador was $11,000. Well, it relates to an $82 increase in your taxes based on the 7 mill rate. Most towns, it's going to be even less than that, because that's not the average value for all towns. So that's fairly reasonable. In maybe you guys think different, but that's not a bad increase in a budget. And again, doesn't mean that's what you're going to budget's going to go up, because you may be in a position where you could actually lower your tax rates or do a lot of different things as a result. Before I get into any operational changes, I would at this point, because we were on valuations, anybody got any questions on the valuation? I know this is a very simple and presentation. Is not a whole lot you can take from it. I do have these numbers broke down by municipality. So if anybody wants to see exactly what's happening in their municipality as to change in residential, commercial, and in comparison to other municipalities, it's certainly available. Just reach out to me and I will certainly make that available to you. I may even end up sending it to our municipalities like I did last year, but it is available. And it's a great tool. Some people, especially when you're dealing with residents and you can do comparisons and, well, what's the value of what am I in comparison to my neighboring communities and different aspects like that? I use it a lot because I always get the questions on the other end. Why am I paying X number of dollars when my neighboring community, my mother-in-law over the next community is paying less? And when I can show them that, well, you take that up with your municipality because the level of values are the same. It drives it home for me, but that's putting the burden on you guys. But that's the name of the game, right? So anybody have any questions actually on the valuation process or anything like that you would like to ask before we move on? No? Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
You go to the mic, we can't hear you.
I do have copies of it over the years that I can certainly supply.
Yeah, just for historical comparisons, because you might wish to make a comparison over time with the adjacent communities.
Yeah, I don't know how many years, because this is something that I myself done since I become CEO or the past couple of years when I was vice president with Sean. But I certainly have at least 2 or 3 years of these stats.
Yeah, we value that. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, operational changes at the agency. As most municipalities or government agencies or anybody, I guess, in the business world, we're required to have a 3-year business plans. This year we had a new business plan that the board has adopted. Roger was on part of that, and I wanted to bring in some of the highlights that we hope to achieve within the next 3 years. And Megan, you guys should be aware of it because we will certainly, some of the programs and things that you will see coming at you are designed around kind of meeting these targets. You know, or it's about stakeholder meeting. One of the things I guess that came out of for me was when the dirty word of regionalization came up, I guess today. There were some aspects in that we were involved in that we had no input in. So we kind of made a commitment that we would engage government to make sure we're at least set at the table where, and if it involves us or anything else. So that's something that we're working with her. And I will say the government Department of Municipal Affairs has been more than accommodating to us in reference to that, and plus other departments. We're all about making the public more aware of the assessment process. Not just the municipalities, the public. We find by doing that, it makes our lives easier, and I'm sure it makes your lives easier. Because that once that explanation gets out there and we're more open and not that we were never open before, but we're providing more details as how everything done, less and less and less questions we get about, okay, the process. And then it's just, you know, people deal with their, whether they like tax or not, but that's irrelevant. So we always want to improve that. We take a lot of feedback. We send out questionnaires and different things like that to the public, the same as we do to you guys. And we look at that feedback and we try to see where we can improve or what we can do. But it will be part of our mandate going forward next 3 years to even make that better if we can. Operational improvements, collecting data. That's something, again, a lot of this stuff we were always doing, but we're always improving it. But again, when you put it on paper and make it a reality, it makes it more of a challenge, or at least it moves forward. But as you know, this stuff kind of does itself. Technology changes and you have no other choice but to go along with it. So we're always on top of what's going on here in Newfoundland, the other provinces in better ways, and actually to come across that. And improving retention and employees. I mean, it's been a problem, not just with us, I'm sure with a lot of your municipalities and anybody listens around with any industry. Retention and that is getting new employees and retaining when we got is a battle. So we're looking at different ways how we can improve that, and the board is looking at different ways. And so we have a few ideas to hopefully get some staff in and that we can get in and keep in the future. From a municipal thing, you know, it's we're trying to make it a lot easier for the exchange of information and how we deal with municipalities and less paper back and forth and different things like that. I did mention last year that we're exploring the setting up some type of portal or whatever on our website. We have started that process, and we're currently talking to our web designer and web provider to see how we can do that and have it in place, hopefully for next year. But I mean, as a direct access, instead of you sending us emails or going different aspects like that, you can go into on a portal on our website and put your sub requests or your name changes or any questions right through that portal. And similarly, any information we want to give to you guys or what, we will then be able to set it up through the portal instead of sending it out in different aspects. So hopefully that's something that we'll see come to fruition within the next year or so, and it'll certainly make it quite easier. And once we get that set up, there is a lot of improvements that can go on that we can use that portal to. I've already reached out to some other neighboring provinces that are using a similar system just to see what we can do to make it a lot easier on everybody involved. The surveys I did mention the surveys. We send out the surveys, and I'm sure anybody here that's a clerk or municipal council have seen it. They are very, very important to us. So we do encourage you to fill them out, send them back. Criticize as much as you want. That's the whole goal of it. It's about telling us what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong, what we could do better, or what else you would like to see from us from an agency. We need your feedback so that we know what we're doing or what you want. So I encourage any council that once you get that survey next year, fill it out and send it in to us, because it's greatly appreciated. And it really is analyzed to see how we can improve our operations at the MAA. So the introductory of our training course, I think I did touch on this a little bit last year, and we probably pushed it. Anybody that's been to the booth might have heard Terry Peckin, our Director of Continuous Improvement, is here, and thanks to Terry for developing and getting this. But previously this was done on an exterior portal that was run by another company. We've since taken that away and put it directly on our website, made it much more easier to access. So anybody can go in there. It gives a brief overview. It's a great learning tool and what we do, how we do it, how our government, what role municipal council plays, what role municipal clerks play in different aspects like that. Again, it's a free course. It's online. And we encourage anybody that's either a councillor or anything to go in and do it. It's not a whole lot of time commitment. I think each module, Terry, is 10 to 20 minutes at most. You can fail it because we give you the answers and all that. But if nothing else, it gives a great awareness of what we do. And for councils, especially anybody that's new, an understanding of what goes on at the MAA and what our obligations and your obligations are. The town of Portland Coast St. Phillips recently had other council do it, and everybody came out of it with great feedback and actually learned a lot that they didn't realize prior to doing it. So I encourage you, and we even open this up to the public. So even if you have municipal residents that are concerned or how we work or want to, you can always push them here. They can go in and do it as well. Everybody will learn from this. Some of the modules are not necessarily derived towards municipal councils because they get into clerk's responsibilities. So, I mean, you get into module 3, probably as a Terry. It mightn't mean much to a councillor, but again, I encourage you to do it because it will give you the understanding of what your staff are doing. And your staff are very crucial to what we do. And I'm sure we're crucial to what they do as well. But that cooperation and how they deal with us is very crucial. And it's good to understand what they're actually doing. This is just a sample of what you'd see if you go on the website. It's a bunch. First, I think it'll ask you to register, which basically just is pretty simple process. There's a few modules there. This is what you'll see. You click on the modules, you run through them, few questions and answers at the end. If you get something wrong, it actually tells you the right answer. The point of this is not to test your knowledge or see how smart you can remember stuff. It's awareness of what's important within what we do. So it is a great resource, and any feedback that you can give us at the end of it is great. Any improvements, we have this. One of the beauties of this on our own website is we now have the ability to change or add to this, and we will certainly do so. And we'll add as we see fit, or as you ask us to add anything that you would like more details on in different aspects like that. Again, I did kind of speak of the client portal. It's in the works, and hopefully that'll be up and running within the next little while. we're even, once we get this up and rolling, we're even considering out way out before it's done, but even some way of access for that municipal or for that your residents could access the portal. Different ways of getting assessment notices. Once you do this, once you get this up and running, what you can do with it is amazing, and it's pretty much eliminates paper completely. You know, you can go and see the details on your properties, and you go in and see your assessment notices and different aspects like that. What do we got next? Mentioned last year that we introduced our mobile assessor. I think we were just into it when it was here last year. Few bugs as you would expect with any new technology, but it is a great resource. It is cut down on expenses, but on time and different aspects like for doing assessments. It's instantaneous. We can have we sent an assessor yesterday to do something we needed right away. We could have that as soon as he leaves the property within an hour, it's back on the assessor's desk. Field worker still out in Port of Bass somewhere. So it's a great tool. It allows us to better make sure our accuracy is there. It's set up so that everything we need from that property has to be filled out before you can close it. So, you know, everybody kind of can forget or whatever and forget, mark down the number of bedrooms or something, who knows? This tool eliminates all those errors because you can't leave the property until you fill everything out. So it's a great tool. It's a web, cloud-based device that syncs it from our system to this, back up to the cloud and back down instantaneously within an hour. And I think staff has embraced it, and they weren't too happy when I introduced it, but I think if I told them they had to go back to paper tomorrow, they'd be even worse. So it's a great little, it was a great improvement to our operations. Aerial imagery is a big issue, a big topic, and one that I'm excited about. We did a pilot project a few years ago with the town of Torbay, have done numerous towns since that, and have now pretty much made this a project within the agency. Aerial imagery is the future. There's no doubt about it. It allows us to do a lot more work in a lot shorter time with a lot less people. Not that we want less people, but as I mentioned earlier, retention and attracting people is hard. This tool is great. It does everything we need. It's not, anybody that's not familiar with aerial imagery, a lot of times you'll see this on certain websites. You might see the city of St. John's, for example, has some aerial imagery. You might see a corner. When you first look at it on a map, it screams Google Earth, but it ain't Google Earth. This is imagery that's actually taken by a bunch of Cessnas that come in here, fly the province, get or the area that's contracted, get great imagery, not just back and forth, what you get. They multiple passes, they make the best quality picture out of it. We can measure buildings on this within an inch, which is pretty good. It's 7 millimeter, I think, resolution. And it's done a lot it's done a lot to improve our records, the municipalities' records, and pick up stuff that the person that without this permit was hiding for years is now captured. We just finished, I think it was Pasadena, and like almost $9 million extra in taxable dollars was picked up. We picked up 7 or 8 in Stephenville, 4 or 5 in Pooch Cove, Paradise, I believe, over $50 million in taxable revenue was discovered through this from things like sheds and decks and things that weren't missed because we missed them or the municipality missed them. We all know why they were missed. The majority of them, nobody bought permits. And, you know, you can only see so far in somebody's backyard, but this is a great little tool. And the advancements that we got in it now are even better. This will be something that hopefully in the day will be tied into that portal, but you through GIS and Fabric, and you'll be able to click on this on our website and be able to see all the attributes of that property. We can use this to show us every sale is to within a municipality, and not only where the sales are to, but what grade, classes, and everything they're in. We see that as a benefit to us, but we see it also as a benefit to the residents, because now they can go in and they can see, here are the ones that we're comparing you to, and then they know instantaneously whether or not they think it's fair. A lot of people now don't. They look at their property value and they think they're comparing it to similar properties. Just because they're on the street, they think it should be the same assessments. But as I mentioned earlier, that's not the way it works. It has to be similar properties, similar locations. So this stuff, the advancements in aerial imagery is amazing and what you can do with it. So, and it is the way of the future. Collaborative Initiative Fund, again, it's out there. It's a fund that we set up to assist municipalities. We do pay, like, I think it's $2 per parcel. For projects that you wish to take on, it's a one-time fund per project that we feel would benefit us as well. A lot of people have used this for aerial imagery, but it's not just for aerial imagery. But some of the communities that have done their own aerial imagery flyovers have applied for this grant from us and have received it. So for anybody that's not out there and they're thinking about a project that they want to take on, may need some support, put an application in, we'll review it. And if it's something that benefits us as well, we'll certainly be more than glad to help out with some funding and on that end. Maintaining the role is I have this every year. I preach this every year because it is so important, both to everybody. I mean, again, there's just the tax revenue loss, but it's important for us to do our job. For you guys, yes, it's tax revenue loss. That's why sending in sheds, sending in decks, sending in anything that you think affects valuation, send it in. Because for us, it's important because when we're doing analysts and sales, we want to have our records as complete as possible so that we are comparing apples to apples. Having this all included makes it fair to all the residents, and plus it do add tax base and revenue to you at the end of the day. So some of the people that I spoke to that haven't been doing this, or not that they haven't, they chose not to do it because they didn't want to raise taxes within a year. Well, you don't have to. If anybody who doesn't want to have supplementals throughout a year, no problem. We got no issues with that. We're more concerned about getting the data. We'll just roll it into the next tax year, whatever you want, or you can set a certain limit. Some towns come back and say, we only want assessments for properties that are changing over 25,000 or something to that aspect. When it comes to the supplementals themselves, we'll follow your lead. And whatever you tell us, if you don't want them, we won't give them to you, but we certainly need that data. It's very important. And by not sending it in and not providing us with that data, it is a disservice to the rest of the residents that we've already have it, because your uniformity is kind of lacking a little bit. So please, I encourage all municipalities that they make sure that this is happening on a regular basis within their municipalities. These are some of the things that designate a supplemental, and these are laid out in the assessment deck for anybody that's not aware. It says what is a supplementary. I highlighted in red customer service for anybody that's especially a municipal worker, council worker, or a clerk. We set up an independent, not an independent, but a separate email address just for these forms. It's important, very important that because we do have other emails like an info line, and some people send them directly to assessors. We'll start now to reject anything like that. We want them coming through this email site, because that's how we can guarantee that we received them. That's your receipt that we received them and everything like that. So if anybody sees any things coming back to them saying it was sent to the wrong site, and I know it's easy enough to say, well, why don't you just put it in there? Well, we did that for a while. Now we will start sending them back saying, just please send it to customer service. It's to your advantage. You will get a receipt back saying you got it. And that way, when you phone us up and didn't get done, we can't say we didn't get it, you got receipt of it. So that's very important to make sure everything is sent through that site. Now, hopefully we get the portal up and running. That'll be obsolete, but till then. So that's it for me for now. I will open the floor to questions. Anybody got any concerns, questions, anything you would like to ask the agency or you want us to do? Now is your opportunity, I guess, to do so.
Tom, do you want to introduce yourself?
Oh, yes.
Staff that you got here?
I did.
They'll be at the booth and-
Yeah, and I meant to do that, Roger. Thank you, because I forgot, but when the gentleman did it earlier with me, and I thought that was a good idea. So for anybody that's not familiar with, and I'm actually happy to introduce him, because one of the struggles with retention I've had over the past, I guess, number of years, even before Sean Martin, anybody know left, was getting a management staff in place. But I'm so happy to say now we have a full complement of management staff, which has made my job much easier over the past year. And for anybody that don't know him, I'll introduce him. Terry Peckham, I mentioned earlier. Terry just wave is continuous improvement. Terry's been with the agency close on 30 years as well, I guess, but he's in a director's role. Recently had Troy Bragg. Anybody from the central area will know Troy, but he recently took over the position of manager of assessments. And again, it was great to have him there, made it a lot easier on me and a lot easier on my director of valuation services, Mike War, who's also here today. So again, I'd like to take them and all the staff that are, we are a small staff with a big job and we managed to get it done. And I must say, I'm very proud of my staff for that. Any questions?
Now's the time, folks, because you've got an open floor to ask these guys the questions you want. And it costs you nothing to get to the mic. So tap it away. I can't believe there's nobody going to ask a question.
We must be doing everything perfect. Huh? We have been sending out the notices. One improvements that we made was getting notices out in the mail in June. We're pushing and thanks to the fact that now that I do have Troy and Mike and my team, getting all appeals handled ASAP. So hopefully by the time you go to your budgetary process in October, there won't be any surprises. The only surprises will be anything that's coming out of review of commission, which we don't control, you guys control. So, you know, I think that was another positive, but it's all about how we make these things easier for you guys. So any suggestions, any of that, feel free to reach out anytime and let me know.